Heart-warming moment police officer, stop his horse for disabled kid to stroke. People were beginning their daily routines. Some hurried to work, their briefcases swinging, while others walked leisurely, enjoying the calm start to their day. Birds chirped from the trees lining the town square, and the faint sound of a fountain splashing added a soothing rhythm to the morning. Officer James, a tall man with a gentle smile, was patrolling the town square on his police horse, Shadow. Shadow was a majestic brown horse with a white stripe down his face and soft, intelligent eyes. James had trained with him for several years, and the bond between them was strong. They moved together as one, Shadow's hooves clicking lightly on the cobblestone streets. The sight of a police officer on horseback always drew attention, and people often stopped to watch them pass, children pointing excitedly. As James guided Shadow through the square, he noticed a boy sitting in a wheelchair near the fountain. The boy had dark, curly hair and bright eyes that sparkled with curiosity and excitement. His mother sat close by, holding his hand gently, but it was clear he was focused on the horses. Every time Shadow neighed softly or flicked his tail, the boy's eyes grew wider. He leaned forward slightly, trying to get closer, but the wheelchair kept him at a distance. James had seen children watch the horses before, but there was something different about this boy. He wasn't just looking, he was mesmerized. His gaze followed Shadow every step of the way, and his small hand reached out as if he could touch the horse through the air. James felt a warmth in his chest. He knew that look. It was the look of someone who longed to connect, to feel the gentle presence of a living creature. The boy's mother, noticing her son's fascination, smiled softly but looked a little anxious. "Tommy, maybe we should move along," she said gently. But Tommy shook his head slightly, his eyes never leaving Shadow. He made a soft, pleading sound, a little whimper of hope. The mother sighed but didn't insist. She knew her son's love for animals was deep, and she understood how much this moment meant to him. James guided Shadow a little closer, careful not to startle the boy. Shadow, sensing the officer's intention, lowered his head slightly, nostrils flaring as he sniffed the air gently. The horse's large, kind eyes seemed to acknowledge the boy's excitement. James smiled beneath his helmet, remembering how horses had comforted him during difficult times when he was younger. There was a special kind of magic in the connection between humans and animals, and he wanted Tommy to experience it. Around the square, people began to notice the small scene unfolding. A woman walking her dog paused, a young couple stopped mid-step, and a few children clutched their parents' hands as they watched. No one spoke at first. They seemed to sense that this was a quiet, precious moment. James guided Shadow slowly, step by step, until they were right in front of Tommy. The horse's ears twitched, attentive and calm, as if he knew exactly what was expected of him. Tommy's eyes widened even more when Shadow stopped just a few feet away. He reached out his hand as far as he could, trembling slightly with excitement. His mother held his other hand, steadying him but letting him lead this moment. "Go on, Tommy," she whispered softly. "He's friendly." The boy nodded, barely able to contain his joy, and his lips curled into the most beautiful, innocent smile. James adjusted his position slightly, keeping Shadow steady. "Take your time," he said gently. "He likes people." Shadow shifted slightly, stamping a hoof lightly on the cobblestone but remaining calm. He lowered his massive head until his muzzle was level with Tommy's outstretched hand. The boy giggled, a high, pure sound that echoed softly through the square. The mother's eyes glistened as she watched her son. She could see how happy he was, how something as simple as touching a horse brought him so much joy. Life for Tommy was full of challenges, and moments like this were rare and precious. She whispered a little prayer of gratitude, thankful for the officer's kind gesture and for the gentle nature of Shadow. Around them, the town seemed to slow down. People watching held their breath in a quiet sort of awe. It was amazing how a small act of kindness could bring so much warmth into the day. The bakery owner, leaning against his shop window, smiled as he watched. A few children whispered to each other, pointing at the boy and the horse, their own faces lighting up with wonder. James felt a deep sense of satisfaction. This wasn't part of any report or police duty. It was something far more important. It was about compassion, about seeing a human being's need for connection and responding with care. Shadow, with his calm presence, made it possible. The bond between man and horse had created a bridge to another human being's happiness, even if only for a few moments. Tommy's tiny hand brushed against Shadow's soft muzzle. The horse exhaled, warm breath tickling the boy's fingers. He laughed again, and the sound was pure joy, ringing in the crisp morning air. James gently placed a hand on Shadow's neck, steadying him, and watched as the boy stroked the horse's soft face. Shadow stood perfectly still, patient and understanding, as if he knew this was a special moment that needed no rush. The mother took a few steps closer, her heart full. She wanted to capture this memory, but realized that some moments were too perfect to be interrupted. Instead, she simply watched, holding Tommy's hand when he needed support and letting him experience this connection fully. Around them, the town square seemed alive but quiet in a way that made the scene feel sacred. As minutes passed, Tommy's excitement never waned. He talked softly to Shadow, telling him about his favorite animals at home, his soft voice filled with wonder. James listened, smiling. He had seen many children interact with horses before, but there was something uniquely touching about this boy's pure love and eagerness. He knew that small moments like this could leave a lasting impression on a child's heart. Finally, after what felt like both an eternity and just a few seconds, Tommy gently pulled his hand back. His cheeks were flushed, and his eyes sparkled with happiness. "Thank you," he whispered, his voice soft but full of gratitude. Shadow lowered his head slightly as if to nod in response. James guided the horse back a few steps, giving Tommy a chance to wave goodbye. The boy's smile never faded. Even as Shadow moved away, Tommy continued to watch, waving his hand and calling out soft words of farewell. His mother hugged him tightly, tears of joy in her eyes. "That was amazing," she whispered. "You made his day." James waved back, a quiet smile on his face, knowing that this morning would be remembered by all who witnessed it. As they continued their patrol, Shadow walking calmly beside James, the town square returned to its usual rhythm. But for a brief, magical moment, a small boy and a police horse had shared something extraordinary, a connection that reminded everyone around them that kindness, patience, and compassion could create memories that lasted a lifetime. James glanced down at Shadow, feeling grateful for the horse's gentle nature. He knew that no matter how many patrols he rode or duties he performed, moments like this were the ones that truly mattered. A simple act of stopping, a small gesture, had brought happiness to a young boy's life, and in return, it had filled James's own heart with warmth. And as they rode out of the square, the memory of that morning stayed with everyone: the boy, his mother, James, Shadow, and the townspeople who had witnessed the scene. It was a reminder that sometimes, the most meaningful moments in life were the simplest: a touch, a smile, and the kindness of one person willing to take the time to make a difference. After that unforgettable morning encounter in the town square, Tommy could hardly stop thinking about the majestic horse and the kind officer who had made his dream come true. The memory of Shadow's gentle muzzle against his small hand was still fresh in his mind. For a boy who lived with a physical disability, moments like this were rare, moments when he felt truly included in the world around him. He kept smiling all day, telling his mother over and over about every detail: the way Shadow's ears twitched, the softness of his coat, and the way Officer James had smiled as he let the horse stand still for him. Tommy's mother, Mrs. Reynolds, watched her son with a mixture of pride and relief. She knew how difficult life could be for him at times, how small acts of kindness could make an enormous difference. She wanted him to experience joy, independence, and connection, but she also knew the limitations of his condition. Seeing him so happy, even if only for a few minutes, was a blessing she could never forget. She gently squeezed his hand as they rolled slowly toward home, listening to him recount every detail with boundless excitement. At the same time, Officer James returned to the station after finishing his morning patrol. He thought about Tommy constantly, remembering the boy's wide eyes, the softness of his touch, and the pure joy on his face. It was moments like these that reminded James why he had chosen to become a police officer in a community-oriented town. It wasn't just about enforcing rules or responding to emergencies. It was about being present, showing compassion, and connecting with people in ways that went beyond the uniform and badge. James sat at his desk, jotting down a few notes about the morning patrol, but his mind wandered back to the boy in the wheelchair. He wondered about Tommy's life, his challenges, and the obstacles he faced every day. James had grown up around horses, and he remembered how animals could sense emotions, how they could provide comfort when words weren't enough. Shadow, his trusted partner, had done exactly that. The bond between them had created a bridge, however small, between Tommy and the world he sometimes found difficult to navigate. Back at home, Tommy couldn't stop talking about the experience. He insisted on drawing a picture of Shadow, using all the colors he could find. The brown of Shadow's coat, the white stripe on his face, the soft green grass of the square, it all came alive on the page. Mrs. Reynolds watched him carefully, helping him hold the crayons and guiding his hand when necessary. She encouraged his creativity and enthusiasm, knowing that these were the moments that nourished his spirit. She had always believed in celebrating small victories, and today had been a remarkable one. Word of the encounter spread slowly through the town. Passers-by who had witnessed the moment shared it with friends and neighbors. The local bakery owner mentioned it to his customers, and soon, people were talking about the boy and the horse that had stopped just for him. There was a warmth in the town, a sense that a simple act of kindness could ripple outward, touching more lives than anyone could imagine. Some even joked that the morning square had become a magical spot where happiness could be found if one paid attention. Meanwhile, Officer James continued his patrols over the next few days, often thinking about Tommy. He started looking for opportunities to encounter the boy again, not to show off the horse, but to offer small, genuine moments of connection. He believed that these interactions mattered, that they could give a child like Tommy a sense of belonging and joy that extended beyond a fleeting experience. James coordinated with his colleagues to plan patrols near the park where Tommy and his mother often spent their mornings, hoping to see the boy's smiling face again. One day, as James rode Shadow along the familiar path near the park, he spotted Tommy from a distance. The boy's face lit up the moment he saw the horse approaching. His excitement was contagious, and James felt a wave of warmth at the sight. Shadow, too, seemed to recognize Tommy, nuzzling the air in greeting as if he remembered every detail of their first encounter. James slowed the horse, keeping a calm and gentle pace so Tommy could approach safely. The mother watched from a nearby bench, her eyes shining with gratitude and happiness. Tommy reached out again, laughing softly as Shadow's muzzle came close. This time he felt more confident, more connected, as if the first encounter had built a bridge between him and the horse. James guided Shadow carefully, letting Tommy explore the moment at his own pace. He noticed the boy's fascination with every detail, the texture of the horse's coat, the warmth of his breath, and the subtle movements of his ears and tail. It was a lesson in patience, empathy, and observation, one that James knew Tommy would carry with him forever. As days passed, these encounters became a small but cherished routine. Sometimes, Tommy's friends from school would come along, watching in awe as he interacted with Shadow. The boy's mother captured these moments with photographs, carefully saving them in an album that would tell the story of Tommy's magical mornings. James and Shadow were careful to ensure each encounter remained safe, calm, and full of positive reinforcement. The interactions were never rushed. Each one was a shared experience, a way to teach Tommy about trust, kindness, and connection. What made these moments truly special was the subtle impact they had on everyone around. Other children learned from Tommy's enthusiasm, seeing that disabilities did not limit the joy one could experience. Adults in the park were reminded of the power of patience and compassion. Strangers who happened to pass by often stopped, watching silently, feeling uplifted by the simple but profound bond between a boy and a horse. It was a chain reaction of positivity that began with a single act of thoughtfulness. One morning, as the sun rose over the park, casting golden light across the grass, Tommy's mother noticed something different. She realized that her son's confidence had grown. He smiled more readily, laughed more freely, and spoke with greater clarity about his feelings. These small changes were subtle, almost imperceptible, but they were profound. The bond with Shadow, facilitated by Officer James, had given Tommy a sense of agency, a feeling that he could interact with the world in meaningful ways despite his challenges. James observed these changes too. He noticed the sparkle in Tommy's eyes, the way he eagerly reached out to touch Shadow without hesitation, and the gentle, happy laughter that filled the park. These moments were reminders of why his job mattered beyond the call of duty. It wasn't about tickets or patrols. It was about people, empathy, and creating lasting, positive memories. Each encounter was a small gift, a shared piece of joy that strengthened the fabric of the community. One afternoon, as Tommy stroked Shadow's muzzle, he whispered softly, "I wish I could ride you one day." James chuckled, understanding the boy's longing. "Maybe someday," he said gently, "we'll find a safe way for that to happen." Tommy's eyes widened at the thought, and his smile became even brighter. That small exchange symbolized hope and possibility. For a boy who often faced limitations, it was a glimpse of freedom, of experiencing life beyond boundaries. Over time, the story of Tommy and Shadow became known throughout Brooksville. Local newspapers wrote about the heartwarming encounters, highlighting the importance of empathy, kindness, and community connection. People shared the story on social media, and soon, the simple act of stopping for a disabled child resonated with many. It reminded everyone that sometimes the smallest gestures, slowing down, showing patience, offering attention, could leave the biggest impact. Through all of this, Tommy's relationship with Shadow remained pure and joyful. Each morning brought new discoveries, the way the horse's ears moved, the gentle sway of his tail, and even the rhythm of his breathing. Tommy learned to communicate with Shadow in small ways, using soft words, gentle touches, and excited gestures. It was a partnership of trust and mutual understanding, a connection that transcended words. As part 2 of the story draws to a close, it becomes clear that the first encounter in the town square was only the beginning. It had opened a door for Tommy, creating experiences filled with joy, learning, and emotional growth. For Officer James, it was a lesson in the quiet power of kindness. For the community, it was a reminder that genuine human connection could create ripples of happiness far beyond the initial moment. And so, with every morning that followed, the boy and the horse continued their gentle dance of friendship, teaching everyone who witnessed it that true joy often comes from the simplest acts of understanding, care, and compassion. Days turned into weeks, and Tommy's connection with Shadow grew stronger with each passing morning. It wasn't just a fleeting friendship. It was becoming a meaningful routine, one that both the boy and the horse anticipated eagerly. Every morning, Tommy's mother helped him into his wheelchair and rolled him down the familiar path to the park. His excitement was palpable even before he saw the horse and Officer James. The anticipation bubbled inside him like a spark ready to ignite, and his eyes gleamed with joy. On this particular morning, the sun shone brightly, casting warm golden rays across the park. Shadows of trees danced gently on the grass, and the fountain at the center of the square glistened like liquid crystal. Officer James was already there, waiting patiently with Shadow grazing nearby. Shadow's coat shone in the sunlight, his mane flowing softly with the morning breeze. James smiled as he saw Tommy approaching, his face lighting up instantly. Shadow pricked his ears forward, recognizing the familiar presence of the boy he had come to know so well. "Good morning, Tommy," James called warmly, his voice calm and friendly. Tommy responded with a wide grin, leaning forward in his wheelchair as if he could fly across the distance to reach Shadow. The horse neighed softly, a sound that always made Tommy giggle. Today felt a little different. There was a sense of anticipation, a quiet excitement in the air. Tommy had brought something with him, a small stuffed animal that he wanted Shadow to meet. It was his way of sharing something special, a piece of his world with his new friend. James guided Shadow gently closer, making sure the horse stayed calm and relaxed. "You can show him, Tommy," James said encouragingly. Tommy held out the stuffed animal, and Shadow lowered his head to sniff it carefully. The boy laughed, a high, happy sound that echoed across the park. It was as if he had just shared a secret with an old friend. Shadow's soft nuzzle against the toy made Tommy's laughter grow even louder, filling the morning air with pure joy. People passing through the park began to notice the scene unfolding. Some stopped to watch, while others took pictures on their phones, capturing the magic of a child and a horse sharing a moment of pure connection. A few children from a nearby playground ran over to see, their curiosity piqued by Tommy's laughter and the gentle movements of Shadow. James remained calm, keeping the horse steady and focused, aware of how important these interactions were. He understood that every moment was an opportunity for learning, growth, and joy. Tommy's mother watched from a nearby bench, her heart swelling with happiness. She had seen her son struggle with limitations for as long as she could remember, but these mornings with Shadow seemed to give him something beyond words. He was confident, curious, and joyful in a way that was rarely seen. She knew these moments would become memories he could carry with him forever, memories that would remind him of kindness, patience, and trust. As the morning unfolded, Tommy and Shadow engaged in a quiet but meaningful routine. Tommy reached out to stroke Shadow's soft coat, feeling the warmth beneath his fingers. Shadow lowered his head, careful not to overwhelm the boy, and allowed him to explore every detail, the texture of his mane, the gentle movements of his ears, and the softness of his muzzle. James encouraged Tommy to take his time, never rushing, always allowing the boy to experience the horse at his own pace. It was a simple act, but it was transformative. Over the next few minutes, Tommy began to speak softly to Shadow, telling him stories about his life, his favorite toys, and the adventures he dreamed of having. Though Shadow could not respond with words, his calm presence and gentle gestures spoke volumes. He listened attentively, shifting his head slightly, blinking slowly, and sometimes nuzzling the boy's hand. Tommy giggled at these responses, interpreting them as encouragement, approval, and friendship. James watched silently, appreciating the beauty of this unspoken communication. Around them, the community continued to take notice. A local teacher who had been walking nearby paused, observing the interaction with a thoughtful smile. She noticed how attentive Tommy was, how carefully he interacted with Shadow, and how patient the horse remained. It was a lesson in empathy and understanding, one that could not be taught in a classroom. Another passerby, an elderly man with a cane, stopped to watch, recalling moments from his own childhood when animals had provided comfort and companionship. The scene was quietly inspiring, a reminder that the simplest acts of kindness could resonate deeply with everyone who witnessed them. After a while, James decided to introduce a small new element to their routine. He produced a soft brush and handed it to Tommy, explaining that he could gently brush Shadow's coat if he wanted. Tommy's eyes widened in excitement. This was a new way to interact, a way to feel even more connected. With careful guidance from his mother and James, Tommy began brushing Shadow, moving slowly along the horse's back and sides. Shadow remained calm, occasionally leaning slightly into Tommy's hand as if to say, "I trust you." The trust between them was evident, forming a bond that was both emotional and deeply meaningful. As Tommy brushed Shadow, James took the opportunity to talk quietly with him about the horse. He explained how horses communicate through body language, how they can sense emotions, and how trust is built over time. Tommy listened attentively, asking questions and laughing when Shadow playfully twitched his tail. Each answer, each observation, was a small lesson about respect, patience, and understanding. The morning became not just a moment of fun, but an opportunity for learning, growth, and mutual connection. Eventually, the moment reached a gentle pause. Tommy leaned back slightly in his wheelchair, looking at Shadow with a mixture of awe and affection. The boy's mother smiled, noticing the calm contentment in her son's expression. "Thank you for letting him do this," she said softly to James. "It means so much to him and to me." James smiled in response, shaking his head gently. "It's my pleasure," he said. "This is exactly why we do what we do." He knew that these small moments of kindness were the true heart of community service. The morning continued with quiet observation. Other children from the park gathered at a respectful distance, watching Tommy interact with Shadow. Some whispered to their parents, sharing their excitement and curiosity. The parents smiled, recognizing the importance of this experience for all the children present. It wasn't just about one boy and one horse. It was about teaching compassion, patience, and empathy to an entire community. Every small gesture, every moment of gentle interaction left a lasting impression. As the encounter came to a close, Tommy gave Shadow one last gentle stroke on the muzzle. "See you tomorrow," he whispered softly. Shadow responded with a low nuzzle, his warm breath brushing against the boy's hand. James guided the horse back to a calm stance, ready to continue their patrol, but neither he nor Tommy felt that the morning was over. The bond they shared had grown stronger, leaving an impression that would linger long after they parted. On the way home, Tommy's mother noticed something remarkable. Her son seemed lighter, more confident, and full of joy. He recounted every detail of the encounter to her, describing the way Shadow had moved, how soft his coat was, and even the way the sun had glinted off his mane. For Tommy, each moment was a treasure, a small piece of magic that he could carry with him through the day. And for his mother, seeing him so happy was a gift beyond measure. Back at the station, James reflected on the morning with a sense of quiet satisfaction. He realized that these small, seemingly ordinary moments were some of the most meaningful parts of his work. It wasn't about emergencies, traffic, or paperwork. It was about people, connection, and kindness. Shadow, too, had played an important role, demonstrating patience, empathy, and understanding in ways that words could not capture. Together, they had created something extraordinary, a bridge of trust and joy between a boy and a horse. The story of Tommy and Shadow continued to spread throughout the town. Neighbors shared it with friends, children spoke about it at school, and even local newspapers began to take notice. People were inspired not just by the joy of a boy touching a horse, but by the message it carried, that small acts of kindness could create ripples of happiness far beyond their initial moment. James often thought about how one simple decision, to stop and let Tommy interact with Shadow, had grown into something far bigger than he could have imagined. As Part 3 draws to a close, it is clear that the bond between Tommy and Shadow was more than friendship. It was a connection built on trust, patience, and genuine care. It was a relationship that taught lessons about empathy, resilience, and the quiet power of kindness. For Officer James, it was a reminder of why he loved his job. And for the town, it was a story that would continue to warm hearts for years to come. And as the sun set on another beautiful morning, Tommy's laughter and Shadow's gentle movements echoed in the park, a testament to the enduring magic of compassion, connection, and the joy of small but meaningful acts of love. Weeks had passed since Tommy first met Shadow in the town square, and each day brought new moments of connection and learning. The boy's excitement never faded. In fact, it grew stronger with every encounter. Tommy had begun to look forward to these mornings with a sense of joy that brightened not just his day, but also the days of everyone around him. For a child with physical challenges, such experiences were incredibly meaningful. They were windows of possibility and moments of pure, unfiltered happiness. On a bright morning, the town square was filled with its usual rhythm. The gentle hum of cars passing by, the chatter of neighbors greeting one another, and the distant laughter of children playing in the park. The sun poured golden light over the cobblestones, casting long shadows of the trees that lined the square. Officer James rode Shadow through the familiar path, feeling the horse's steady steps beneath him. He had come to anticipate these mornings with Tommy just as much as the boy did, understanding that each encounter was more than a routine. It was a chance to make a real difference in someone's life. Tommy, pushed gently by his mother toward the square, could hardly contain his excitement. His small hand clutched the edge of his wheelchair, and his eyes sparkled with anticipation. As soon as he spotted Shadow, his face lit up in a wide, radiant smile. Shadow, too, recognized the boy, lifting his head and pricking his ears forward. There was a familiarity between them, a bond that had grown stronger with each visit. James guided the horse closer, ensuring the interaction remained calm and gentle, ready for the magic of the moment to unfold. "Good morning, Tommy," James called softly, his voice carrying a warmth that put the boy instantly at ease. "Ready to see Shadow?" Tommy nodded vigorously, his laughter bubbling up like a joyful melody. Today, Tommy had brought something special with him, a small bag filled with treats for Shadow. He had spent the previous night carefully placing the treats inside, determined to share them with his four-legged friend. His mother smiled proudly, watching her son's excitement and the thoughtfulness behind his gesture. James allowed Tommy to approach Shadow slowly, making sure the horse remained calm and steady. "Here you go, Shadow," Tommy whispered as he offered the treats one by one. Shadow sniffed each one carefully before gently taking them from the boy's hand. Tommy giggled at the horse's gentle manner, feeling a sense of pride and accomplishment. The interaction was simple, yet it carried a profound message. Kindness, patience, and care could create moments of connection that went beyond words. People passing through the square began to notice the scene. A group of children from a nearby school paused to watch, fascinated by the gentle exchange. A young couple taking a morning walk stopped, smiling as they witnessed the boy feeding the horse. Even the elderly man who often sat on a bench near the fountain leaned forward, his eyes softening as he observed the quiet magic unfolding before him. There was something universally appealing about the bond between a child and an animal, and this small act of kindness had captured the attention of everyone around. After giving Shadow the treats, Tommy began to stroke the horse's soft coat, moving his small hand carefully along the mane and down the back. Shadow lowered his head slightly, sensing the boy's affection and responding with gentle patience. James watched silently, appreciating the trust between the boy and the horse. These moments were teaching Tommy important lessons about communication, empathy, and respect. The boy was learning to observe, to wait, and to respond thoughtfully, skills that went far beyond the playground or classroom. Tommy's mother, seated nearby, felt a wave of gratitude as she watched the interaction. She knew how rare and special these experiences were for her son. Life for Tommy was often filled with challenges, and small gestures of joy like this could make a lasting difference. She whispered a quiet "thank you" to James, recognizing the effort he had made to create these moments. James simply nodded, understanding that the real reward was seeing Tommy's happiness shine so brightly. As the morning progressed, James suggested a new activity, a gentle walk around the park with Shadow, with Tommy observing and guiding him from his wheelchair. The boys' eyes lit up at the idea. With careful coordination, they began to move slowly, Shadow stepping in time with James' guidance, and Tommy following along, pointing and laughing at each movement. It was a small adventure, a shared experience that allowed Tommy to feel included and connected. The community watched in admiration, impressed by the patience, trust, and joy displayed in such a simple activity. During the walk, James explained to Tommy how horses communicate through subtle movements, the twitch of an ear, the swish of a tail, and the way they shift their weight. Tommy listened intently, asking questions and reacting with fascination to each explanation. Shadow seemed to enjoy the attention and the gentle interaction, moving calmly and responding to the boys' soft gestures. The bond between them deepened with each step, creating a sense of companionship that was both comforting and empowering for Tommy. Other children began to join in from a distance, curious and inspired by Tommy's interaction with Shadow. James encouraged them to watch quietly, teaching them about respect, patience, and understanding. He emphasized that animals respond to calm, gentle, and thoughtful actions, and that every interaction required empathy. The children listened eagerly, learning important lessons not just about horses, but about compassion, kindness, and the importance of paying attention to the feelings of others. Tommy's confidence grew with each passing minute. He began to narrate stories to Shadow, describing adventures he imagined, places he dreamed of visiting, and the things he loved most in life. The horse listened patiently, occasionally nudging the boy's hand with his muzzle as if to acknowledge the stories. Tommy laughed at these gentle gestures, feeling a sense of companionship and connection that transcended words. His mother watched, marveling at the transformation she saw in her son, how these moments were helping him grow emotionally, socially, and mentally. The park was filled with a quiet sense of wonder. Neighbors passing by paused to observe, children stopped their games to watch, and even strangers felt drawn into the warmth of the scene. James guided Shadow carefully, ensuring the horse remained calm and comfortable. He knew that these small, deliberate acts of kindness had a ripple effect, touching not only Tommy, but also everyone who witnessed the interaction. It was a living lesson in the power of empathy, connection, and thoughtful attention. Eventually, the morning came to a gentle pause. Tommy leaned back in his wheelchair, smiling broadly at Shadow. "I love spending time with you," he whispered, his voice soft but filled with emotion. Shadow responded with a low nuzzle, and James guided him to stand calmly beside the boy. The connection was palpable, a quiet but powerful bond that conveyed understanding, trust, and friendship. Tommy's mother approached, helping him adjust his position and brushing back a stray curl from his forehead. She whispered words of encouragement and gratitude, reinforcing the joy and love present in the moment. As they prepared to leave, Tommy waved goodbye to Shadow, his small hand reaching out as if to hold onto the magic a little longer. Shadow lowered his head, allowing a final gentle touch, and then followed James calmly as they continued their patrol. Tommy's laughter and the warmth of his smile lingered in the park, a testament to the enduring impact of kindness, patience, and thoughtful attention. James reflected on the morning as he guided Shadow back through the town square. He realized that these moments were more than interactions. They were building blocks of confidence, empathy, and joy for Tommy. Each morning spent together strengthened the boy's sense of connection, his trust in others, and his belief in the goodness of the world around him. Shadow, too, seemed to understand the importance of these encounters, moving with gentle patience and calm assurance. Back at the park benches, neighbors and passers-by continued to discuss the morning with quiet smiles. They spoke about the beauty of the bond between Tommy and Shadow, about the lessons of patience and kindness they could all learn from such a simple interaction. Children who had watched attentively began to imitate Tommy's gestures of gentleness with pets at home, inspired by the horse's calm responses. The small ripple of goodness created by one thoughtful officer and his horse was spreading, touching lives in subtle but meaningful ways. As Part 4 drew to a close, the morning ended not with fanfare or celebration, but with quiet reflection, joy, and contentment. Tommy returned home with a heart full of happiness and a mind buzzing with stories to share. His mother felt gratitude beyond words, knowing that these mornings were shaping her son's confidence, his sense of wonder, and his ability to connect with the world. Officer James, riding Shadow through the familiar streets, felt a sense of fulfillment that no award or recognition could ever match. The story of Tommy and Shadow had become more than just a local tale. It was a living example of how patience, kindness, and thoughtful action could create lasting joy, foster trust, and teach lessons that extended far beyond the immediate moment. And as the sun dipped lower in the sky, casting soft golden light across the town square, it was clear that the bond between a boy and a horse had touched hearts in ways that would be remembered for years to come. The weeks had turned into months, and the bond between Tommy and Shadow had grown stronger with every morning they spent together. What had started as a single, heartwarming moment in the town square had become a series of meaningful experiences that brought joy, confidence, and connection into the lives of everyone involved. For Tommy, these mornings were not just fun, they were transformative, giving him a sense of freedom, trust, and companionship that brightened every part of his life. On this particular morning, the sun rose over Brooksville, painting the town in soft shades of gold and pink. The streets were calm, with the usual bustle of early commuters and children on their way to school. Birds sang from the trees lining the park, and the fountain in the square glimmered as it caught the first light of day. Tommy's mother helped him into his wheelchair, carefully adjusting his blanket and making sure he was comfortable for the morning ahead. The boy's excitement was impossible to hide. He bounced slightly in his chair, eyes shining and fingers fidgeting with anticipation. Officer James and Shadow were already waiting in the square. Shadow's coat gleamed in the sunlight, and his gentle eyes brightened at the sight of Tommy approaching. James guided the horse closer, keeping a steady, calm pace. "Good morning, Tommy," he said warmly. "Ready to see your friend?" Tommy's face lit up instantly, and he laughed in sheer delight. Shadow neighed softly, and the familiar sound made the boy giggle uncontrollably. It was as though the horse had become a part of Tommy's world, a friend who understood him in ways words never could. Today, Tommy had brought a small surprise, a handmade card for Shadow. He had spent the previous night coloring it with crayons, drawing the horse in shades of brown and gold and adding a big, happy smile to his face. "I want him to know I like him," Tommy said excitedly to his mother. She smiled and nodded, touched by the thoughtfulness behind the gesture. James guided Shadow closer so that Tommy could show the card to his four-legged friend. Shadow sniffed it gently, and Tommy laughed, clapping his hands in delight. The connection between the boy and the horse seemed almost magical, as if each understood the joy and care behind the other's actions. As they settled into their morning routine, Tommy began to interact with Shadow as he had in previous weeks, stroking his soft coat and brushing his mane carefully. James guided him patiently, offering gentle tips and encouragement. "You're doing great, Tommy," he said. "Shadow can feel your kindness." Tommy's mother watched from nearby, her eyes softening as she observed the confidence and happiness her son radiated. The simple act of spending time with Shadow had given him a sense of pride and independence that was evident in every movement, every word, every smile. Passers-by once again paused to witness the heartwarming scene. Children stopped their games to watch, neighbors lingered near the fountain, and even strangers walking through the square found themselves drawn to the gentle interaction. The atmosphere was calm and joyful, filled with the subtle hum of life in the park. People whispered to one another about the beauty of the bond between a boy and a horse, inspired by the patience, empathy, and love displayed in such a simple, natural way. Today, James decided to introduce a small new activity to make the morning even more special. He brought a soft ball and suggested a gentle game of rolling it between Tommy and Shadow's hooves. The boy's eyes widened in excitement. With careful guidance, Tommy rolled the ball toward Shadow, and the horse nudged it gently back with his nose. The simple game filled the morning with laughter and fun, teaching Tommy about cause and effect, coordination and teamwork. Each roll of the ball, each gentle nudge, deepened their connection and made the interaction feel even more alive. Tommy's laughter was contagious, drawing attention from the children nearby. Some of them came closer, curious about the game and eager to see how Tommy and Shadow worked together. James allowed them to observe, using the moment to teach about respect, patience, and understanding when interacting with animals. He explained that horses, like all living creatures, respond to calm and gentle behavior, and that trust must be earned with kindness. The children listened attentively, learning an important lesson that would stay with them far longer than any simple game or playground activity. As the morning continued, Tommy shared more of his stories with Shadow, narrating adventures he dreamed of having and places he hoped to visit one day. Shadow, with his calm demeanor and attentive eyes, seemed to listen as if he understood every word. Tommy laughed at the horse's gentle reactions, the slight tilt of his head, the soft swish of his tail, and the occasional nuzzle of his hand. These small gestures of acknowledgement made the boy feel seen and appreciated in a way that few experiences outside this bond could. The community's presence added another layer of warmth. People passing by were drawn into the story, and many commented on how heartening it was to witness such a genuine connection. "Look at the way he smiles," one parent whispered to another. "It's like he's found a true friend." Indeed, the impact of these interactions extended beyond Tommy and Shadow. It was touching hearts across the town, spreading lessons of empathy, kindness, and compassion in ways that words alone could not. As the morning drew on, James guided Shadow to a gentle pause. Tommy leaned close, resting his small hand on the horse's muzzle one last time. "Thank you, Shadow," he whispered softly. Shadow responded with a low nuzzle, a gesture that felt like understanding and friendship combined. James smiled, gently patting the horse's neck, aware of the trust and connection that had formed over weeks of patience and care. Tommy's mother leaned in, her eyes glistening with tears of happiness as she hugged her son tightly. "This is such a special moment," she whispered. "Thank you for everything you've done." James shook his head gently. "It's my pleasure," he said. "Moments like these are why I do this job. It's about people, about kindness, and about making memories that last." Shadow shifted slightly, standing patiently as the boy and his mother shared their gratitude. The simplicity of the moment, the quiet joy, the gentle gestures, the heartfelt smiles, was a reminder of the profound impact that small acts of compassion could have on people's lives. The walk back through the town square was filled with quiet reflection. Tommy waved goodbye to Shadow, his smile as bright as the morning sun. Shadow lowered his head slightly, allowing one last gentle touch from the boy before following James along the familiar path. As they moved away, the town square seemed to carry the warmth of the morning, lingering in the hearts of those who had witnessed the interaction. People continued with their day, but the story of the boy and the horse had left a lasting impression, a reminder of the quiet power of kindness and empathy. When Tommy returned home, he couldn't stop talking about the morning's events. He described every detail: the ball game, the gentle nuzzles, the way Shadow seemed to listen to his stories. His mother smiled, knowing that these experiences were shaping her son's confidence, social skills, and sense of joy. She carefully saved the handmade card he had given to Shadow, tucking it away in a special folder that would serve as a memory of the magical bond he had formed with the horse and Officer James. Meanwhile, Officer James returned to the station with Shadow, reflecting on the morning's events. He realized that what had begun as a simple act of kindness, stopping to let a boy touch a horse, had blossomed into something far greater. It had built confidence, nurtured empathy, and strengthened a sense of community. Shadow, too, had played an essential role, demonstrating patience, gentleness, and understanding. Together, they had created memories that would stay with Tommy and his family for a lifetime. The story of Tommy and Shadow continued to inspire the community. Neighbors talked about it, children shared it with friends, and even local newspapers highlighted the heartwarming encounters. People were moved not just by the boy's joy, but by the message it carried: that small acts of kindness, patience, and compassion could create ripples of happiness far beyond the original moment. The impact of these interactions was clear, touching lives in subtle, meaningful ways. As Part 5 draws to a close, the bond between Tommy and Shadow is evident to everyone who knows the story. It is a relationship built on trust, patience, and genuine affection, one that has enriched the lives of both the boy and the horse, as well as the community around them. Officer James understood that the true reward of his work was not measured in awards or recognition, but in these moments of connection, joy, and growth. And as the sun set over Brooksville, casting a warm golden glow over the town, Tommy's laughter and Shadow's gentle movements echoed in the park, a testament to the enduring magic of kindness, patience, and compassion. In a world that often moves too quickly, this simple story reminds everyone that the smallest acts, stopping to share, listening, being gentle, can leave the biggest impact. It is a story of friendship, trust, and the remarkable power of caring for one another. For Tommy, Shadow, and Officer James, it was more than just a series of encounters. It was a journey of heart, a collection of memories filled with joy, learning, and love. And for the town of Brooksville, it was a reminder that true community is built not just on rules and routines, but on moments of understanding, connection, and the willingness to take the time to make someone's day brighter. The story of the boy and the horse became a cherished tale, one that parents told their children, teachers shared in classrooms, and neighbors discussed with smiles. It was proof that even in the simplest acts, in the quietest gestures, there is extraordinary power, a power to transform hearts, build confidence, and create joy that lasts far longer than the fleeting moments in which it occurs. And so, the bond between Tommy and Shadow remained unbroken, a shining example of how compassion, patience, and kindness could create memories that endure forever. The warmth of their friendship lingered in the hearts of everyone who witnessed it, leaving a gentle, lasting reminder that love, care, and understanding are the most precious gifts one can share.